What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Hilliard Guess, and you guys are listening to the Break It Down Show.
This is great. I love it. Oh, man. I love being here. I love hanging out with you. I love being on the lot. I feel like a big, fancy Hollywood producer when I walk on. And they're like, who are you? So it's great. But it's always a pleasure to come to your dojo and do things with you. What a treat for me. And it's so great. Like, we've done so much stuff together. And I watched you and you, oh my gosh. And we've come so far. When you think about how, like, our relationship first began, we first became friends through your cousin and everything, like, what fills in that space from then to now?
Oh, so much. You know, it's funny. We were talking before we started. You were asking me, like, oh, how am I doing and stuff? And, you know, I always have 5 or 6 projects going on. And it's interesting. I read and I listen to a lot of podcasts and books on, like, really wealthy people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do too. You probably have interviewed a lot of them too.
All the time, yeah.
And if you ever do, it's fascinating when you talk to guys like that, guys and girls. They all have many things going on. They can't sit still. They don't sleep very well. You know, they're constantly the people who are on the go, who are moving, who are doing more than one thing at once. You know, and it's just piggybacking off of what you're asking me. When I think about where I was, say, 10 years ago, when we first met, even probably longer than that, is I'm still doing the same thing, but on a higher level. Yeah, if that makes sense.
It does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still the same, but better. You know, and I'm more wiser, and I was wise then.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm typing in the link to your website, so I'm going to leave you on camera for a second. But
do Screenwriters Rant Room.
Yeah.
At Gmail. I'm doing Screenwriters Rant Room.
Okay, so that one, that's up on the screen now for everybody looking. It's right down here below me. And that's where you go to find out an incredible game in the game of creating movies, screenwriting particularly, but show running, everything. It's in there. Every time I tune in, and this is like no bullshit, I get inspired. Because, you know, I'm trying to become you. I have a lot of projects and they're like sort of evolving and they're percolating, but I'm like, God damn, it can really be done. It's you know this, every project is impossible. They race forward and then they stop and then it's crazy. But every time I listen, and it's pretty often, I don't listen to hardly any other shows at all, but I listen to yours religiously because I'm always picking up things that are valuable. So everybody else, go to this website right down here. And if you want to get into screenwriting or understand Hollywood or anything, there's all the things I say are things literally you've taught me everything I know.
Here's the funny thing though. Let me interrupt you. This is really funny. So I've been knowing for years that you wanted to produce.
Right.
Here's the irony. We were just talking about this offline.
Yeah.
You've already been producing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this right quick because people don't quite understand what it is guys like you and I do.
Right.
Even with a podcast.
Right.
Let's just talk about the fundamental things you need to know. Not alone with the logistics of how you have to organize, get the equipment together. Right. Now you're a one-man band. So it's not like you got a whole team. So you have to edit, you have to set up, you have to strike it, you have to put it on you distribute, you have to go to interview all the people. You are producing, guys and girls. Yeah. This is producing itself too. The good thing is this is getting you ready for when you finally sell your film, you know what I mean, and all that stuff like that. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to add, you didn't see it, but when you sent me the script this morning, I lit up. Oh. Not like, but here's why. Yeah. Usually when we talk, you talk about what you are trying to do. Yeah. Now I'm like, wait a minute, you got a script? You're producing a movie? You know what I mean? Yeah. So look at where you've come from 10 years ago. You see what I mean? So that's what I like to see. That's the growth. Yeah. Right.
Well, in again, like I had a meeting today about this book. So here's what my show has become. It's maybe someday I'll make a ton of money for my show, but probably not, right? I'm 2,000 episodes in. It's like, it just is what it is. Yeah. But what it is, I've learned to make it valuable. And there's production in that. It's like, here's why we do this thing. Because I know you. And if I can send someone your way, and maybe you guys do business, maybe you just, whatever, there's value in that. And now I just know so many people in the industry on both sides of it. And the thing I realized with my show, it creates a bridge.
Yes.
And so these guys go on the tour of Hollywood, but they're just on the tour. They're not like actually, yes, they have actual agents, and yes, they are pitching things, but they're pitching from a weak position.
Right.
And so now I can say, hey, and people, you might get a hold of me legitimately and say, Pete, do you have anything on this the market wants? And maybe I'll have an answer. Of course, it could be yes.
Sure.
But that is where I'm at now. So one side calling to me and saying, hey, do you have anything on, obviously, war? Do you have any war stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I got war stuff. What do you want? But also all these shows, all these authors, they have these books and they don't know or don't have the capacity or the time to turn them into something that could be made. Even if it never gets made, we get to a higher level. And that's the kind of producing I'm doing now. Obviously, I've got to find people that have money and all the other things, but I can take something that's nothing and produce it into something that's packageable, and people want to talk to me more about those projects.
Right. Like the thing you should be thinking about doing next, outside of while you're trying to sell the projects, you guys should probably look into, this is just taking a step forward. Yeah. You probably have the equipment to do it, to be honest. You probably should do like a proof of concept on the film.
Yeah.
You know, like I think I've showed you the Mermaid years ago when we did the proof. It's like an 8-10 minute version. Yeah. But it tells you what the story is. You get a sense of exactly, oh, this is about a little girl who goes to this thing and boom, this happens. Right. The other thing that we did that's really clever is if you're smart, it's its own standalone movie. Yeah. It's the proof of concept to said movie, but yet you could send it in film festivals and it has a great ending that makes you go, oh, that's its complete little film. Yeah. But it's the proof of concept to the film. Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a super sizzle.
Yeah, and also you have to realize this is something I'm always telling young filmmakers and everybody, young and old filmmakers. Hollywood will respect you when they see your work. Yeah. There's a reason why you want to do, everybody's like trying to pitch, trying to do this, trying to do that. Right. So you were asking me what I've been doing. Yeah. I'm the producer who doesn't wait for Hollywood. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I go out and find ways to make things happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. And sometimes you might have a movie you want to do that you just can't afford to do. Maybe you can make the proof of concept for it and let that be your vehicle. Now people are like, ooh, you could do that? Okay, here's $500,000 to shoot this thing. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it happens. All the time. Know what I mean? Matter of fact, that's how we shot this last film I did. You did a proof of concept. Somebody saw it, was like, we want to get behind that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they put down the first money, Yeah.
I just had a director on the show, and he did this movie called The Comic Shop. And it's about a comic book store and the world that happens within that. Right. And it's an amazing thing to talk to this indie producer, and he was talking about the levels of budget. Or like if you get above, he's like, we made this thing for $70,000, and it's all you need because it's a single setting for the most part, mostly internal, not that complicated. He's like, but if you get above that, then you have to do things like, oh, do you have Matt Damon in this thing? And so like the requirements and the money, he's like, the story doesn't necessarily get any better. And sure, there's more money, you can do more things. Right. But there's these tiers, and he's like, and I'm comfortable at this tier. I want to be higher, but I also don't want to have $100 million budget because there's only 5 of those a year, and that's just a different pool, and I don't want to split. We talked about that budgeting side of it and where the happy places are for 20 minutes, easy.
Well, I mean, even on the film, I sent you the trailer to look at for Mermaid this morning, and like that film, we wanted to do a $2 million version. Yeah, it would have been crazy if we would have done it. We ended up doing it for way less than $1 million. Yeah, but it looks like a $2 million movie. Yeah. See, there's a trick to that, right? That's the production value side. Right. That's about where you see it's gorgeous. It's about where you shoot it and the resources you use. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, piggybacking off what you're talking about, your first movie, you don't want to come out with a $10 million movie. Right. You may not make that back. Like you said, you need a Matt Damon, you need a Ben Affleck, you need somebody to start. But even that doesn't guarantee it's going to be a hit, right? So you're better off trying to make a movie for, say, $250,000, $500,000 or whatever at first to show that you can look, I put together my resources, right? We went back to Benicia and shot there because nobody shoots there. Yeah. The mayor gave us the big shot here. And the police were like, sure, you guys could do that. And we had the police car. You see what I mean? Yeah. You start using the resources around you And next thing you know, you have production value that you would have never gotten if you tried to do it here in New York, Chicago, Atlanta. You know what I mean? Use the resources where you are. But people don't think they can. You just haven't asked anybody. You know what I mean?
It's so good. And we're talking about this project in Benicia with fighting, and it happens on a barge. I can get a barge. There's someone that's like, you put my barge in a movie. Okay, look, we got to have some insert, but that's all production stuff. But we could shoot a small scale example of it. You know, I think because of the people I know right now, I've got Hollywood people that are like, hey, when you get to this level, come talk to me and we'll start talking, right? So I've sent this draft of the screenplay. I'm like, hey, it's a draft. We're not sure how the end of it's going to be, but this is going to get you 90% of the way there. Because really, the screenplay, and you'll get this.
But it's like your proof of concept.
Right. Like, this is where we think this is at. Obviously, we're going to trim some things out. And it could be that when the big fight happens in the end, I think we're going linear with the story. We're not going to play with time. But I think it's like Jim and Joe fight, ... And then leave it to the director to sort it out. And there's all kinds of newspaper articles, so you can get very literal with it, or you know, but that doesn't necessarily belong to us on the writing side, you know. And of course, as a producer, I'm going to have some input. But that screenplay is pretty close to what the story is going to be. It's just now, what do we put in that's not real for the sake of the story? What do we pull out to speed it up a little bit? And
just like right now, I believe you're at 120. Like there's. So you talked about speed. So here's something I talk to about filmmakers all the time. You actually, there's no reason you can't do a historic drama at 120 pages. Do it. But if you want it to be a faster pace, maybe you get it down to like 110, even 115 they all make a difference. Right? With pace and with timing and what's the other word I want? Tension. Tension. Now you don't have to wait for tension because now it comes every 10 minutes. You know what I mean? As opposed to this long drawn out. But we have 120 pages, so you start taking your time. You don't worry about getting to things faster. You sometimes come in scenes too early and you leave too late, as opposed to coming in scenes early and leave late. You know what I mean? So it's like a little thing that starts to happen where you go, we could totally take off 5-10 pages of this if we took out the fat. So your job is to go, where is the fat?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But it's hard when you know the script, especially when it's based on something real. This happened. You feel like you want to, but this happened. We can't miss this and we can't miss that.
That's the problem.
And then there's this character and there's this character. But what I find is when you're telling a story about something real, you know, I've written a lot of historic projects. You have to composite characters sometimes. So sometimes there might be, say your story is based on a book in general, there might be 70 characters in the book. Well, in your script, you can only use 20. Generally. Now, Spielberg will have 70 people in the script, right? So I'm generalizing. Because you want it to be simple to read. You don't want to confuse people. You don't want to introduce a new character on page 90 all of a sudden, because that's what happened in the book. You know what I mean? You want to make sense so that people feel attached and not the word likable, they feel relatable to the characters that they've met. Which is why you don't want to bring in somebody conveniently. All of a sudden they save them. You know what I mean? It's like, no. We've never seen him before. He just happens to be right there when the car does it, whatever. You know what I mean? No. It has to be set up. Set up, payoff, set up, payoff, set up, payoff. You know what I mean?
The links that are required to tell the story, it's something that I'm fascinated with, because you can do whatever you want. You can put in whatever sequence you want, but you're right, you have to, like, one of the challenges right now is we have to limit a number of players. You know, we're not sure exactly who's going to make it, but certain people have to be there. And there's a fight every 5 minutes in this movie. There's a lot of fights. Because it's a progression, and these guys fight several times. So we've got to build the tension between these two to where they must do this horrific thing in spite of everything else. And also, we have to bring in the entire community. That is so crazy. It's like a secret. It's like a fight club that everybody kind of knows about, but no one knows what's going to be. So people are losing their minds spending. And this is in the 1800s, and they're spending thousands of dollars to get to Benicia from San Francisco. And there's no bridges. You know, they're going on tugboats and anything. They've got rowboats. It's great. So we've got to create something that creates that passion about this project, you know. And so there's like Irish versus Jewish and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't there's also Chinese people in this story.
Yeah.
And so it just gets really big. And so I have to try to, when I think about what Emery's Emery's the writer, when Emery's writing this thing, how do we stay true to the story? Because the story is everything we need. But yeah, how do we manage the responsibility of the tension and why do they do this? And then,
I was just about to say the why part is probably like on the top of my list.
Yeah.
Like when I'm breaking down a story, I'll write why and circle it, and then you do your spider web thing around it. You know what I mean? And then you start thinking about how do characters tie in. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, so my main character is this person it's Pete.
Yeah.
Right. He's a boxer. He's 24. He's whatever the fuck. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go, okay, now his love life is going to be this woman. She's this. That means that she's attached to this person. Then they're attached. You see what I mean? You start to do this thing so that it all makes sense to you.
Right.
As opposed to just willy-nilly going, well, in the book,
yeah,
they did this.
Yeah.
They did this. Here's my rule of thumb whenever I tell people who's writing a story based on something true.
All right.
You have to have license. Number one, what happens in the book is not necessarily interesting in what happens in the movie.
Right.
You have to have things set up and paid off, like I was saying before. You can't just assume, well, we wrote that there's a fight, so there's a fight. There has to be look, we know that the hero is determined that they need to get $10,000 by the end of the script in order to save his mother.
Right.
You see what I mean? Whatever, they're on a goal to do something. So everybody else is going, oh, my jaw hurts. I'm not going to do it today. He's like, I don't care if my arm's broke. I'm going to fight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now the audience is with him or her.
Yeah. Right.
Because they're driven and we see what happened.
Yes.
He's at home. I'm just making all this up.
No, I get you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's at home. His mom is sick, whatever.
Right.
And the doctor says, if we could get the surgery, she'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now we know that's his want.
Yeah.
What does he need though? He needs the girl.
Yeah.
To overcome whatever the thing is so that he could, you see what I mean?
Yep.
So there's always like extra little things that you figure out the more you evaluate stories and the more you write stories, you start to see, oh, I thought it was about a guy who wants to be a boxer.
Right.
No, it's about a guy who wants to be a boxer who realizes what was more important was having the woman in his life.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no, it's
not the boxing. The boxing is what got him to the point where he met her.
Right.
If he hadn't a box, he never would have met her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's still determined. And eventually he realizes, I don't actually need to win this fight. Right. I've actually made $10,000 already.
Yeah.
I kept going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like little things like that.
As you're talking, you're giving me notes for the notes that I'm going to give us because we all, Emery's a pro. She knows what to do and everything. But when we try to put this thing together, we understand that it is a little slow in parts and we don't necessarily need every single fight. We can account for it some, or we can just ignore it, Sure. Most people don't know this history anyhow. How many historical movies were?
Right. Because you have to world build. You have to build the world that people haven't seen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? What's the word you said? They're on what?
A barge.
What is that again?
A barge is like a flat boat that you put like grain
on. Pontoon.
So yeah, exactly. So it'll come down from Stockton and it's loaded with rice from the Central Valley. Okay. So you can take that to the ocean. So you gotta put it on the barge and it just steams along until it gets to the spot.
It's a big giant flat boat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like a moving parking lot, right? Okay. And so you can put whatever you want. You can put a bunch of beef on it, anything. It just carries a bunch of things. And you don't need to put it inside of a ship and it can go on a river. Okay. And so that comes down. And so these guys who worked in Stockton made their money taking the produce from the Central Valley and getting it to San Francisco so it could be sent out places, And so one of the guys was like, I have a barge because it was illegal to fight. And so the way they got around it was by
because they're out in the water. They're off.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so like, whose county is this? And there's all these things. So they do that. Why did they do that? Well, a couple of days before when they had their, this is going to be the big blowout fight, they were up in Marin. And they go into this farm and they're going to knock each other out. So they're in this barn and the sheriff finds out about it. And now there's a horse chase and the sheriff's like riding his horse. He's like, you tell me where it's going to be tomorrow, but you can't fight here, And so you have this thing. Why do they do that? And then so you can go backwards in time and a lot of the whys are there. But, I still don't know that it works going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Totally makes sense. No, totally. was thinking about my first script I ever wrote is about it's the origin story of Skinheads, as you remember, but the character wants to be a DJ on the radio. He wants to be like the British version of Wolfman Jack.
Oh yeah.
But in England in the early 60s, they had pirate radio because they couldn't distribute on the radio.
Yeah.
So they would go out on the boat and go out there and distribute there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it just reminded me of that. Like as soon as you said they're on the barge, I was like, oh, they went out there to fight so that nobody could arrest them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they can't see, they don't know what's going on, whatever.
Right.
I'd be curious to know, did they do it during the day? Did they do it at night? Like what did they do? How did they light it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's interesting.
They did it during the day. and so this thing, the reason why it's so memorable is an absolute gladiator fight. Yeah. It's horrific, gory, but both men stood the test. And ultimately, they don't really answer who's better. It doesn't matter who wins because they both won. Are
they fighting each other? Or are they fighting other people?
No, they're fighting each other. Okay. And so they had these fights as they were kids coming up opposite sides of the tracks, and literally the tracks, the cable car tracks, right? And so they come up and they have this real loathing. And the one kid goes on like this hero's journey. And so the movie kind of right now is about him. And his antagonist is a main character, but it's really from his point of view, his life, that we see this thing. But we spend a lot of time with the other characters.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people your movies, even when you're doing an ensemble piece, in my opinion, it's better when they're still through somebody's point of view. It makes it much more easier for the audience to follow. Yeah. So that you put together, oh, this heist movie is really focused on, O'Shea Jackson, because he's the one who blah, 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 you know what I mean? Yeah. And then you go, okay, got it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like little stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's, so I don't know how the camera, and I'm not going to be too concerned about that yet because they got a director and all that kind of thing. But just understanding like what I think this looks like, and I can see so much of it in my head. There's this one great image that to me like wraps the whole thing up. Is these guys agree on fighting. They're going to use a certain kind of glove, little 2-ounce horsehair gloves, and they're going to box. Okay. And they get to the barge, and the one guy Joe is like, "Oh, I thought we said no gloves. I thought we said bare knuckles." Yeah. And then Jim's like, "No, we absolutely said gloves." And then Joe's like, "Well, I didn't bring any gloves." Right. And then he's like, "We better find some." And some guy in the crowd goes, "Well, I have gloves." And then he puts on like these like leather like riding gloves, and they got stitches on the seat. Sure. It's just like knives. Yeah. And it's so this fight just goes crazy. Anyhow, so the story is incredible. And I wanted to back out and talk a little bit like, yes, I can go see the mayor of Benicia, but also this thing happens in Oakland and San Francisco. Sure. And so I can go to these places and I can say, I want to make this thing. I want to have be funded by people from Oakland, San Francisco, Benicia. And look, maybe I don't get all the money, but I bet I can get a good bunch of it.
All you need is the startup money, right? Like the first, nobody wants to be first. Right. Yeah. So this is why I'm talking about, for all of you, considering, maybe doing some sort of a proof of concept. Now you ask me, what does that cost? Yeah. It costs whatever you decide you need to spend. Yeah. So like you may want to do a proof of concept that doesn't actually do the fight. Right. But maybe it's something that shows what what the story is about. Like the story is about these two guys who have to brawl, and how are they going to survive whatever the thing is. Yeah. And that's what you decide to shoot. This big scene between the two of them, deciding who's gonna whatever. I don't know the story. Yeah. So you know what I mean? But it's the dope ass scene. They both have equal, parts. They both have a dramatic moment. Maybe it is a fight. I don't know. But something that shows the audience this is the tone of the movie. Yeah. This is what it's about, and it ends in a way where you're like, wait a minute. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it could be something as simple as it could be the scene like I didn't bring my gloves. Yeah. What do you mean you bring gloves? Well, I got some, and he puts them on, and we know from the audience that these things are gonna rip his fucking face off. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he just goes whack, and you go to black. You know what I mean? It's like little things you could do to show. Yeah. Little it's like a strong teaser. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. It's an incredible thing to be able to work on these projects. Yeah. I get very excited about it. What's too many projects? Because I've got a dozen things where, like, if someone said, "Do you have anything on this?" I can legitimately say, "Yes, I do." Right?
Like right now, I'm working with Scott Husing. We've got his book in development right now to go to Iraq, hopefully this winter,
Really?
and film. And so we've got real budgets put together. I mean, it's really being done.
Is there a script already?
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a documentary. And I think we're going to go because the guy who's helping us, he's a gonzo journalist. His name's David Holthouse. And so we're likely to make a plan, but we'd be pretty loose, but they have 2 different camera crews. But there's people that, because of the 20-year nature of the war and time, people want to fund this thing. They actually came to me and said, "What do you have?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've got Scott's book. Oh, by the way, I have another project, with some." And so all of a sudden you have multiple projects that I'm trying to just get them, if not a proof of concept, like let's get to the steps where we get to proof of concept. Because every one of those steps, what's the outline, who are the characters, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Too many projects.
Yeah.
Too many projects are when they overwhelm you.
Yeah. Okay.
If that, for me, that's when I'm like, okay, which ones are important now?
Yeah.
I said I was going to finish this one and this one.
Yeah.
So I'll do those 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I do stuff like that. Or, we're talking about producing this pilot. So let's focus on how we're going to get to that point. You know what I mean? And then, but I don't ever think I have too many projects. So here's a funny thing.
Yeah.
I started writing the script around 2015 or 16. This really cool thriller. This really cool thriller show. And I realized I got about I wrote out the whole outline and I started writing the script and I got about maybe 35, 40 pages in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got another job and forgot about it. And then I got staffed on Deadly Class after that, and then forgot about it. All these years went by, and January, February, I'm just scrolling through my stuff on my iCloud, and I see this folder. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I didn't even remember. I wrote a Bible for it, all kinds of stuff. And I pull it out, and I started reading these first 30, 40 pages, and I was like, this is really good. And I was like, but I don't write like that anymore.
Oh,
that's another thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I always tell people. Every time you write a sentence, you grow.
Yeah.
Every time you read somebody else's script and you take in, especially a good script, and you take in whoa, that was dope.
Yeah.
Now you have more information. So when you go back to your script, you're like, I just read Shane Black's script. He did this. I did that. How can I do a version of that?
Yeah.
You see, you start thinking like that.
Yeah.
So the more you do it, which is why I'm always encouraging writers, you can't write if you're not reading.
Right.
You won't be good. You can't just go, I watched a TV show. It's not the same thing. No. You need to learn how they execute it on the paper, on the page, right? I had a thought now I was going to say. No, I forgot what it was.
Too many projects.
So I found this project and I was like, oh shit, I forgot about it. Meaning about having too many projects. Yeah. And so I'm working on it now and I'm loving what I'm doing, but I almost completely rewrote it, because of who I am now. That was 8 years ago when I first started fiddling with it, right?
Yeah.
So, but being open to that and giving it a new voice is an important thing. So when I have, as you know, I've talked about this before, when I'm writing, talking about having multiple projects, I always have at least 3 projects going at the same time.
Right.
I have the project I'm writing as a script, the project I'm outlining for the next thing, and then Minimize is a project I wrote years ago.
Right.
I've been writing for 23, 24 years.
Yeah.
I have a lot of scripts and a lot of outlines, a lot of pitches, a lot of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll pull something random up, then I'll be like, oh. So I'm writing the script that I'm doing now. I'm playing said music to it. And every 45 minutes, as I told you, my alarm goes off. And I stop. I work out for 10 minutes. I've already went to the gym. This is my way of taking my walk.
Right.
Taking my walk is me working out, doing a quick superset, some abs, whatever, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And then I'll switch to the outline. I work on that for 45 minutes. My alarm goes off, and then I switch to the thing I worked on years ago. It might be a pitch, it might be an outline, it might be whatever, and I'll pull that up and work on that.
Right.
And every time I do, I change the music to whatever the tone is of the story I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps me in that headspace. So that I'm constantly, if it's a horror, I'm constantly feeling like, ooh, and then they get killed like this or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's a thriller, I'm like, ooh, they get killed like this because they get killed too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it's something funny, it's a little more lighter. Like I even listen to like it inspires me to listen to like a lot of people can listen to music but they can't listen to words. I listen to words.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, ooh, they said, ooh, I like that word. Oh, they never said that. Oh, that was dope.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a line of dialogue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's for me. I'm constantly listening for things like that as
Yeah.
a writer. And you should too.
Yeah.
Your ears should constantly be open to other things. And which is why I encourage writers, those of you who can't just sit at home. And a lot of people have to sit at home in the dark and write. Great. If you get pages done, bitch, go ahead.
Right.
Do you. I can't do it.
Yeah.
You see, I have the music on.
Yeah.
I have the window open. Like I want to hear people talking downstairs. I want to have the door open so people are walking by.
Yes.
I like energy. You know what I mean? I'm feeding off of that. I'm one of those guys. I always joke about this. I don't know if it's true anymore, but I think it's true. Like I feel like I could set up in the middle of a club, just pull up my thing and sit at a table and start writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would be killing it because I'd be looking, going, oh, I love what she's wearing.
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's an interesting villain because of blah, 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 blah. Oh, did you see them riding in that cool little car? Oh, that's a dope car. You know what I mean? I'm thinking like that.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly adding stuff to it. And I'm not writing the script. I'm writing the story.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? There's a difference, right? A lot of people just go straight to the script. Bad thing to do.
Right.
Bad thing to do. You want to write it out. You need to know what it is you're writing. You have to know where you start and where you end. And it might change, but at least you should have a blueprint of what it is because it helps you to get to that point,
Yeah. You for sure taught me all that. And I was in my meeting today, we were talking about this axe murderer from the early 1900s. And the guy who wrote the book's very passionate about it. And so he's like, I've written the pilot. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Now let's figure out what the story's going to be. We back up and we start talking about the possibilities and, we had Jeffrey Reddick and we had him in your office here. And I always think about using death as a character, because it's a great device. And so this guy kills people with axes. Is the axe a character? Maybe, is
it alive?
Yeah. Is it alive? Right. Like, is voodoo a character? Because this stuff happens down in the voodoo part of the South. And then all of a sudden you realize there's richness in this culturally because you have voodoo, that means Creole people, that means Catholic people, that means Protestant people, and all these different things that are involved in this story. And so we took this thing where he's already written what happened in a screenplay, and that's awesome, right? He created something, but now I've got him thinking like more formulaic, like, hey, so why do we care? What happens? Why today?
Yes.
Yeah. And that story has a lot of emotional things. So you go and you axe murder the victims. Okay, well then what? Like it can't just be a rampage,
Even Jason had a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what I always tell horror writers. I'm like, guys, do you know Jason was killing people because shit that happened to him?
Yeah.
That's why anybody who comes here, you're gone.
Right.
Because of what happened to me. Boom. You know what I mean? Same thing with Freddie. The kids did the thing to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like, it's an old story, so we can't really do a documentary because there's really not like images of it.
Right.
Maybe, but it lends itself either to be a horror movie or some kind of like true crime thing. And so what he'd thought about was having like a Scully and Mulder X-Files kind of thing, where one of them's a true believer and the other one has some other thing that's
skeptical or something.
Right, exactly. And then one of the breakthroughs today is he wanted to set it in this time as they look back at these old murders. And I'm like, there's no living memory. There's not many people who have living memory of someone who had a living memory, and so why don't we set this in the 20s or the 30s or the 40s? And he's like, you're right. Like because why are you chasing this unsolvable? Look, if you solve the crime, who cares? There's not going to be any retribution. And so the X-Files element of it came in, and that seems to
Do you
fit.
remember Cold Case?
Yeah.
Cold Case did a really, not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
they did a really cool thing where, just for the premise for the people, where they would take, somebody comes in to the detectives and is like, hey, I want you to solve the murder of what happened to my sister.
Right.
You know what I mean? When we were 12, this thing happened, and it's been bothering me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's been unsolved. So they go back, and we see these flashbacks throughout. You meet all the characters, come to find out it was the teacher. You know, whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? So there's ways to do that. Matter of fact, I said on a podcast recently that if there was one show I'd bring back that I'd love to show run, it'd be Cold Case.
Oh, really?
I just love that show. I remember I wrote a spec script about it.
Yeah,
it was such a good show.
Yeah, I had the same thought about Moonlighting, because Jerry and I have been watching Moonlighting, and it's just so great. Like, it does reach a point where it has lost its energy, but it's so progressive. Even today, so many things, so many of my mannerisms are Bruce Willis things, because I was, I was 15, 16 years old when this thing came out. And I love it. And I would love to see a modern version of this thing. That they have a pie fight to close one of these. Like, there's so much Hollywood stuff in this LA crime thing. It's just, it's so good. I would love to see someone, take that on and recreate that kind of, if you can, that kind of magic.
Right. Yeah, they say, I had Aaron Rasan Thomas on my show. He's the one who created SWAT with
the modern SWAT.
Yes, the modern SWAT. Sorry, with I'm not forgetting his name. That's horrible. The Shield. Who created the Shield?
I know Michael Chiklis was in the Shield. That's all I got for you.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Huge writer. Love you. I don't know why I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we were talking about this. He was saying when he was deciding what show he wanted to write, he was looking for what IP is out there.
Right.
And he went through this whole thing and came to SWAT, and it was like, oh, SWAT would actually work with this thing I'm trying to do about this black cop who's living between these worlds and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And he was like, so he found out who the producer was, who owned it, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So then you backtrack and do that whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that's where a lot of people go. That's where it's going. In my opinion.
Right.
IP has been hot for 15 years now. Yeah. Everybody's in the IP, but that's another way to look at it, is go, okay, how do we bring back something that was hot years ago, but give it a new twist today? You know what I mean? So I haven't figured out what the twist would be to a Cold Case, because I like the way it was. I thought it was dope. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a matter of giving it a new, and I haven't figured it out yet because I haven't thought about it enough. But yes.
Speaking of Cold Cases, our friend Tony Toast, who we went to his house and saw, he already finished it, but he did the next season of Poker Face.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. And so, and that, for anybody watching, that's like Columbo. Yeah. And Natasha Lyonne is the one who's the Columbo character, and she's like, bullshit, and she's such a Muppet, she's so you have to watch her. That's one of the great things about her. But they've taken Columbo and really made this new version of it with, and they've done a great job of, it's not just a guy.
Then they made her a woman. And
right. Exactly. Yeah. It's neat to see the reinvention of something and our ability to put a woman in that role. Like, that's one of the great things about what's going on. Sometimes it doesn't fit. And so people are like, why are we doing this new thing? Like when they made the new Valley Girl came out, I never even thought to watch it, because that movie was perfect for its time.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I see why, but wasn't it like a musical or something too?
I don't remember. That was what's his name? Who started it?
Well, Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I don't remember there being a no. He couldn't.
I think the modern one.
Was supposed to.
They
switched it to a musical.
Yeah, I think that was one of the ideas. I don't know if they actually did that or not, but that was part of the thing. But that Valley Girl was a musical of sorts because the music was so integral, right? Yeah. And it launched a lot of
the 80s, all those movies back then, it was a huge soundtrack. Yeah. Pretty in Pink, like all those movies back then. Yeah, for sure.
Actually, that brings a good point. So I'm working on a couple of projects, and anytime I can bring my friends out, like if I can find something for you to do, I want, I know you're busy, but I'm always going to ask. And Chris Thomas King is a friend and incredible blues musician, but he also can act.
Okay.
And so, one, I want to tell that story about Storyville that I told you about, but also like he is an expert on early 1900, late 1800 music and knows how to play it properly and everything too. And he's desperate to get that out. And so,
is he the one from Phoenix?
He's from Baton Rouge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There was somebody that saw in Phoenix.
Well, there's another guy from Phoenix we might be talking about. But Chris, I guess Chris's expertise is blues, early era blues. Like he knows the history of the blues like better than anybody else alive. And he can play it like he did in No Brother Where Art Thou. And so I want to take his ability and actually have him run the music for the boxing film because he can better approximate that. But also anything that fits in that genre, I just want to have him come in and work because I just want to see him. Look, he's done fantastic, but I don't want him to be some old blues guy who no one knows about because no one gives him a shot at something.
And he's current.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So
but to me,
yes,
that is about when you're trying to sell this movie. You come with this is called having an element.
Yeah. Right.
So whether it's a director, an actor, whatever, it's like, oh, we're trying to sell this thing, blah blah blah. Here's what it's about, and when you're done, you're like, and it also comes with such and such is this guy, blah blah blah, is going to do the music. Yeah. He's known for blah blah blah. He sells out all over the country and blah blah. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now you come with another element. So now you try to find another element that's on board with just that. So they go, oh, see, you're doing producing stuff. This is what I'm telling you.
See?
This is what separates the producers from the writers.
Right.
Who everybody is a writer now and they want to get a producer credit, but they're not doing anything to show that they can produce.
Right.
Whenever I go out to produce or to pitch something, whatever, I tell you about the element I brought with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not only are you going to get me, my partner is one of the biggest casting directors, so she's going to cast. You know what I mean? We're already talking to this person, this person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're already thinking about these directors. These are people we can jump on the phone with right now who've already said if we do this, they're in.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So now I ain't just the writer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm clearly coming with power.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is you are doing the right things.
Yeah.
Yes.
I learned it from you.
Well, that's good. I appreciate it.
I call it, are you interested in being interested, right? And so there's all kinds of people that I know, but Jim Meskimen he's a good impressionist. His mom is Marion Ross from Happy Days. Yeah. And he's an actor in his own right. And so I said, hey, do you like boxing? He's like, not really. I'm like, well, here's what I was thinking I'd like to have you do, if we can figure it out, is you are good at voices. So I need someone to help us understand what people sounded like back then and either coach or act or something. And he's like, send me the book. And he's like, I love it. Yeah. Let me know if and when you get ready. Right. And there's no obligation. It's just, he's interested in being interested.
But
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I do that from time. I apologize.
Please do it. Jump in. I want you to.
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
So if you decided to do the proof of concept, you can even do a visual proof of concept. He can narrate it.
Yeah.
It sounds like he could put that voice on to narrate how they used to talk back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And have Chris play along too. And just have him just doing what he does, right?
Yep. Yeah. And you could do it through his soundtrack.
Right.
He already has the music. He doesn't have to write anything new.
Right.
You can just pull like what song works the best that keeps it going. A little 2-3 minute piece that tells you what the story is with a little narration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I know it, because I'm a producer.
Right.
I know that I can go to Chris and say, hey, I want you to lay down some music for this. This is why we're doing it. This is where we're going. And then he's going to either say yes or say yes, and it costs this much. Either way, that's fine. If I have to get money, I get money.
But that's what I'm saying. You could use the music he already has.
Right. And he easily could say, yes, I have a song for that. That's perfect. Right. Yeah. Because he wants to bring back the knowledge of the old blues anyhow. He's a whole society built for that. So yeah, it's neat to be able to help people that I know. Like my buddy Chris is in audio. He works at Skywalker Ranch.
Okay.
And now he does more like jobs where he comes in there. He used to work there, but now he comes in. But
consults now or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you need to pick the level that you want to be at because I've known this guy my whole life, and so he's capable. But has he ever had the shot to do 2 jobs up? And if he does, then I'm the guy that's going to give him the shot.
And see, that's something I'm always telling producers is, and writers, like we were just talking about this the other day on the show about everybody wants to meet the showrunner.
Yeah.
You know who you should be trying to meet is the number 2 or 3 person who wants to be the showrunner.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person who's next.
Yeah.
So that's that person. You know what I mean? They're next in line.
Right.
But everybody's always trying to go to the key. You know, like people always ask me, well, how do I get these award-winning DPs and everything in my movies and stuff like that? And I'm like, because I asked them.
Yeah.
And I also take a strong look at what's missing in their reel and realize, oh, they don't have this moment that we have in the movie. You know, they need a moment. They don't have anything on the reel that shows they could do this.
Right.
So when I'm pitching to them, going, dude, we love your work, or sis, or whatever, I'm like, here's why you have to do this. Here's why we only have this amount of money for you.
Yeah.
But here's why you have to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You need it too.
Yeah.
What I don't want you is on the set going, well, I'm only making this amount of money. And I said I would only do it for this amount of money. And now they're not even paying me. So I'm like, I don't really care. I need you to be like, I need to get that shot for my reel.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the hunger you want. You want that person who's there going, I need to be here too.
Yeah.
I know you can't afford my normal whatever. But now this is the indie world, kids, the indie world. That's how you get them excited.
Yeah.
Is you take a look at the reel and think about what's in the script or what's in the story that's missing from the reel that they need to add.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't have a lot of action. We got all this action. Your movie is full of action.
Tons.
You know what I mean? So whoever does that you know who might be really good for it?
We hear it.
Whoever is like a super dope stunt coordinator who wants to direct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody like that who's proven themselves,
right?
You know, or somebody who does second unit, who's always directing, you know, the fight scenes and stuff like that, who wants to be the director. Yeah. Somebody like who's a stunt person or somebody who's second unit who directs that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point because it's there's a lot of action, right? And it's action that's different than what we normally see because
and it needs to grow and they need to get better over time and they need to realize, oh, you know, he always fights me like this, so I gotta so the fights have to be set up different. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there could be whoever the stunt coordinator is gets to really play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And grow. So think about that.
No, that's a great point. Like Joe, the character, he's drawing out in the script, he's drawing out footsteps. And he's because he's learning. That's how he's getting better. And he's the one that's on this journey to become a better fighter. The other guy is trying to become a better person. And so they have different paths. But there's a lot of that. Like you have to see that progression from the strength that he adds and everything else. That's wonderful. I'm going to actually clip that out and remind myself of that. That's so good. That's good. I want to talk about the Screenwriters Rant Room because you have this thing and it's been going on for a long. Of all of the podcasts and all of podcast, our shows are way at the top.
Yeah, and we're long form.
Long form. Right. Yeah. And so we've been doing it for so long, and you've got hundreds and hundreds of episodes. When you
520 official.
What's the gift that your show has given you?
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this. I was going to say it to you, but you started talking about something else.
Typical.
And I feel like it makes you more loose. Like I've always thought I was kind of fearless, but I would say now I'm not afraid to talk to I bet that you could talk to anybody. Right. You are not like, oh my God, this is some old star that Harlan connect me with. What am I gonna? You're like just another person. You know what I mean? That you're excited to meet. You know what I mean? Yep. I think that's one of the best things that's come out of it is it's made me. I was fearless before. Yeah. But I think I'm 3 or 4 times more fearless, and it helps me in any meeting that I have because they start drilling me and I just automatically start drilling. I can't help it. Yeah. I start asking them questions. Yeah. Like you and I are having a conversation. It's not just about like you asking me. Right. I'm asking you questions too. You know what I mean? And that's what happens. You have this like gift or ability that you can click into that automatically comes on. Yeah. You cannot stop it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this is a question I was gonna ask you.
Oh, let me hear it.
Being that you've been interviewing longer than I have, being that you've been doing this for so long, do you find even with Jerry that you talk to her more than you probably would normally because now you know how to, like, say there's a problem. Yeah. Do you find you know how to get to the heart of it because you know how to do that now? It's a skill.
Yeah, there's a skill.
I feel like I do with my husband. Like I'll drill him. I'll be like, wait a minute. Oh, that's what the problem was. You know what I mean? Go ahead. That's all.
No, but this is a good point. And I think I probably do the opposite if there's a default there, right? Okay. So for sure I do that. But I like to allow the conversation to be something. And if it's my job to shut up, like I had
you got to be a good listener.
Right, sure. Right. And so, sometimes I'll bring two people in and they might be contrary or whatever it is in a healthy way. Right. But I will sit back. And if I can sit back, I'm like, I'm the king of the world right now. Because these guys are talking. So I had a guy named Sebastian Younger, who's a very famous writer, especially in the military space. He was a war correspondent and everything. And
you had Allison on the other day.
Yeah. He lost his friend Tim, got killed, a little piece of shrapnel nicked his femoral artery, and he bled to death. And so he wrote, and then later Sebastian had a heart thing, or he had a blowout in one of his veins, and he was going to bleed out and die. And so he was dying in the hospital and had a undead experience, right? And so he wrote a whole book about it, and it's powerful, it's great. And so I'm like, all right, anybody can have him on to talk about the book, but I'm going to bring a dead dude. And he's going to be here talking. So his name is Josh Montz. Josh Montz dies from getting nicked in the femoral artery, and he's dead for, get this, 15 minutes.
Whoa.
And they brought his ass back. Huh. Yeah. By the way, then the military is like, you're not 100% disabled. I'm like, dude, you were dead.
Right.
Yeah. They own the whole fucking thing. And so he's this really deep dude. He's getting a PhD in being dead. And he's willing to go to the edge of death again, like in the clinical setting, so he's safe. But he's like, you got to get back so you can understand it. So I'm letting these guys talk about being dead and dying and everything, because Josh will say death is a peak experience, which that don't make no kind of sense. But he explains it. And you're like, God damn. So anyhow, long story short, Sebastian at the end of the show, he's like, hey, Josh, do you mind if I ask you a question about when you died? This is a serious thing. And Josh's like, yeah, ask me whatever you want, because they've warmed up. And by the way, I've mostly shut up this entire episode.
I've done that in a couple of episodes where I just let them talk. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. So Sebastian tees up this. He's like, when Tim died, what did he experience? I'm getting like,
I like it.
And because he's held on to this. Yeah. He's got survivor's guilt. And Josh says he felt perfect bliss.
Ooh, that's bars right there.
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm a little bit teary-eyed.
I like
because in those moments, we can find those moments and make them happen so that the audience, if they pay attention, will go on this ride. And so I love that. I love that. Jay had me to go to the Lakers game. Everybody knows his wife owns the Lakers, and that's a big deal. And so I had like this owner access. It was crazy.
That's crazy.
So I'm down in the club, and the game's going on, and Jeannie's down there, and I might have messed with Jeannie because she knows me, but she's working, so I'm not messing with her. And I brought some of Jerry's kids' friends. So there's 3 dudes, and they are all hyper Lakers fans. So they're having the time. It's like life-changing for them. And I'm kicking it down in this club, and they're like, do you know who's standing behind you? And I'm like, no. And the thing was a moment before, I thought, man, in my old spy days, I'd have to work this room.
Yeah, and you probably would have your back looking at everything too. Yeah,
right. Sure. And I would have I don't have to do anything.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I was just having this moment, like I built this life where, I may never get to do this again, but and I'm not trying to be greedy about it, but I'm just going to enjoy the fact that I can eat popcorn in the Lakers lounge at Jeannie's club.
Right.
And then so they're like, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. And I'm like, oh, really? Oh, that's neat. I don't care. Like, because once you've been around a bunch of celebrities, like they're just people. And the last thing I'm going to do is bug him. Yeah. And standing next to him is Tobey Maguire. And I'm like, that's getting this.
They're the best friends.
Yeah. And there's a girl over here. I bet that girl's somebody too. Yeah. I don't care. But I'm like, you guys should definitely talk. So they talked to a couple of those guys and had that banter. But the show has given me that gift too, where I can be, for the most part, calm in these very exotic settings because I've been shot at.
But it's funny? Thanks for telling that story, first of all. That was great. I love that. And I love my favorite time on my shows is when people are vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. When they let go like that. Yeah. And usually I'm the first person who does it at some point that causes them to realize, oh, I can.
Yeah.
If he does and he's the host, we could do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think out of my 500 something episodes, I've probably teared up 20 or 30 times. Yeah. And I'm not exaggerating. You know what I mean? So here's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
This is great questions. I like this. So how has your shows changed? How has it grown for you? Here's how mine has grown.
Okay.
When I first started doing the show, it was myself and Lisa Bolitaja. We had a great 1-2, right? She's hilarious. She's broad. She's big.
Yeah.
She dropped a lot of game. And then eventually I brought in Chris and Linnell. They would like go back and forth, and Chris started being on more often. And then Chris, started getting staff and started getting busy. So I was like, I always wanted a show. I think I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to go to video for at least 7-8 years.
Yeah.
And haven't. I kind of regret that I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But what happened was, and I wonder, do you notice this too? When you're just on audio, people are like, oh,
yeah.
As soon as the camera's on, people act a little different.
They do. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I realized the few times I tried to record it, my co-hosts weren't quite as loosey-goosey as they were when we were just audio.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I won't do it. But as soon as everybody went off to do their thing, I was like, oh, well, now I could do what I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So here's where mine switched. I still haven't fully went to video yet, as you know.
Right.
But I did do the one thing I wanted to do, which was, and you relate to this. Here's something for all you people. When you have a co-host, you're at the mercy of your co-host. And here's what I mean. You might schedule 11 o'clock for a podcast, but they'll call you at 10 going, hey, I can't come today.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you're stuck going, well, now I can't bring in this showrunner who was going to come instead of recording anyway.
Yeah.
But you're going, well, that's my co-host.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you, there's probably been a dozen or two showrunners and EPs, friends, actors who I didn't record because one of them were busy.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, now I'm going to rotate guest host.
Sure.
Meaning it might be a different host every other week.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some where we're just doing what you and I are doing.
Right.
And so the ones, whenever you hear me just talking to somebody just by themselves, I did it during the weekday.
Right.
If it's on the weekend, I got people in here. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I did was, I know I'm talking a lot, forgive me. The other thing I did was early on when me and Lisa used to do it, I'd have younger writers come and just sit and watch us. Now I have younger writers come and sit and watch us, and they ask us questions at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I don't do it every weekend, but maybe once a month or something like that. But I'm loving that audience feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I noticed those episodes are bigger because at the end, we're spending 30 minutes answering questions from all these writers and filmmakers who want to, come up. And so that's something I'm enjoying more. So I was curious, how have things changed for you?
Well, one thing is I have a basic rule: production over perfection.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be slowed down by that. I'm way less precious about, like, if a guest, I can write the words, we will be live and on video at noon,
Right.
Be here 5 minutes early, and they won't do it. And it used to lather me up. And so now if they show up at 12:02, I don't even say, hey, we're supposed to be live. Even sometimes I do, because sometimes they need to understand. But
yeah, that's a live problem though.
Yeah.
But
I can't communicate it any more clearly than writing the actual words. And I can try to figure out it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point, right? So we'll start at 12:02. No one's desperately, waiting. Maybe they are, but they also know that, like, hey, it's gonna happen. And the thing that, again, once you produce enough episodes, like, well, Pete's going to produce episodes, it's going to happen. So that part has changed. It's not that I don't care about quality, but I don't need to spend a bunch of time in post trying to fix things and make things perfect. I don't put an intro or an ending on it.
Okay.
If I publish on the podcast side, I do, but I don't find any value in that. Like, sure, people will listen and everything, but to what end? Like, I'd rather they go to YouTube. And so I sort of post there just to keep the light on. But if I spend 40 minutes doing that, that's 40 minutes I could be doing stuff that actually drives these projects forward. And I can't justify that.
I relate to that because I don't take out my ums and all that. Like, I want people to be sitting there like as if they're a fly on the wall hearing our conversation.
Right.
I want them to hear the stutters. I want them to hear the mess ups. I want to hear that, we're cursing and, say, I want it to be natural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's why the show works and is so different than the other shows that are out.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to feel like the writer's room.
Yeah.
That first 30 minutes in the writer's room, we're just talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just happen to be talking about you.
Well, to the credit of your show and how it has evolved, I do feel like I'm sitting. I know this. I've been in this room a bunch of times, so I know I'm sitting in that room with you guys. And you can sit somewhere for an hour and have all these people talking and just kick it. Especially now, I don't have to talk. And that, again, is that big lesson for me is I don't have to be the center of attention. I don't have to ask the question that maybe is the obvious question that everybody will ask. I'm letting you direct the conversation as much as I can because it's less about me. Sometimes it's about me. I really want to talk to that person, but I'm really more curious about where you're coming from and why. And that's sort of how I've grown as a host. And I'll say this and then I'll kick it back over to you. Because I was a spy before, I've interviewed in every kind of situation that you could probably imagine. And so when my friends are like, how much prep work do you do? And I'm like, I've done it all already. I don't need to prep. I mean, sometimes there's some, but
all I do is read people's bio. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't read watching other movies.
I go in colder than that.
I usually know most most of them, but for sure. Yeah.
I don't worry too much about any of that at all because, and then they'll say to me, when I'm a producer, they'll say, oh boy, I don't know, gosh, golly, and they get a little scared. And I'm like, listen, I've done thousands of these. You're in good hands. You're going to be safe. And you don't have to prep. I don't have to send you questions.
Yeah, I hate when there's you see me come like, no, we're just going to talk.
Yeah, you are already prepared. You're you, and you're fascinating. And so everybody who says that, and that's what I always say, everybody who says that at the end of it, they're like, well, that was an hour? And they look around like, what happened? And you know how this goes. And so my job is just to let them know, like, hey, I've done a lot of these. You're going to be safe.
I was thinking about something a moment ago about how there are times when you're talking to people and I realize that I may not have something else to say to them, but I'm listening to things that they say. Oh, this is what I was going to say. I knew there was something I was getting to. There are times when I'm talking to somebody and I know I'm asking a question I know, especially when it comes to screenwriting or filmmaking and stuff, but I still ask the question because somebody wants to know. What I'm asking is, and every once in a while I'll go, I know this question, but I'm asking this for the audience. Right. Every once in a while I'll feed that just so that I don't look like a fucking idiot. But like I did it the other day with Aaron Rasan Thomas, and I was like, I kind of know those questions, but here's the question I'm going to pose to you. Yeah. And then I'll ask the question. Do you find yourself doing that too with, like, say you're talking to another military guy, like you know exactly what it is, but you know the audience may not. So sometimes you feed them the audience. Do you feed the question?
Not only do I do it, it's a tool that I use. I use it in a slightly different way most of the time.
Give me some guess.
So when you're running a spy game, you're trying to talk to people, you want them to say certain things. And so I'll say to my interpreter before we go out, they get trained on this. Like sometimes I'm going to ask questions that I know the answer to. Okay. I want you to ask that question anyhow. Right. Because I want them to give me their answer. I want them to give me energy so that I have something to work off of. And so I'll ask about Ramadan. And every single time it seems like my interpreter will turn to me and be like, do you know the answer? And I'm like, remember I told you to ask those questions? That's what we're doing now. And because I'm asking it by design, because I know, like, if I ask you about the paintings on your wall, you will instantly start talking because you love them and you've paid for them and you've added to so many of them now. So I know that if I ask you that, you are incapable of being calm and quiet about it. You know, like when I come here and I say, hey, I love this about you, we'll have someone come down and everybody, Hilliard's a great guest. He's like, yeah, come use my office. I'm not going to talk because I've got work to do. And I'm like, okay. And I set up the microphone every time. And every time he's like, I got to get up and come over. And that's the same thing. That's that tool. I know that when I ask that person about Ramadan or about farming, they are so passionate. Even if anger, happy, whatever it's going to be, they're going to give me stuff to work with. And that's how I use that. Is I use it.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
It helps them to start talking.
And sometimes I use it the way you're talking about. We're like, hey, I know this. This is for the audience, whatever. But yeah, that's the way I use it. And it's amazing that you found that because it's a powerful device.
But I found it naturally because I was realizing I was asking questions to people that I respect and I didn't want them to realize. So it was ego at first. Yeah. But then I was like, But every time I say that, they go, "Of course you do." Like they know that I know these things, and I was like, I don't even need to say that anymore.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I'll preface it for
Sure.
whatever reason. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, I find that I'm very. Oh, let me ask you this: do you listen to all your episodes? You got a lot, though.
I got a lot. I listen to quite a few, but usually it's because I'm going back through them to pull clips out. Okay. So sometimes I'll check myself and see if I'm umming and ahhing and liking too much. But for the most part, I don't listen to them to curate or edit. I use it to publish the shorter piece.
I listen to every episode. It comes on Mondays. I come out every Monday pretty much. Yeah. And I listen to my show. Like when I'm getting dressed or on my way to the gym or whatever, cooking, whatever. And I'm listening to how much I'm interrupting, how much I'm, and I think I'm a lot better, but there's still times, you're just having fun, especially when you're like, we're grooving.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And I know you do it a lot. I personally, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Now that we're in this Zoom time where everything's on Zoom or, because I noticed a lot of your shows, your guests are, I don't know if you're in the same room a lot.
Never, hardly ever. Yeah.
That would drive me bananas. Yeah. I'm much more of a, like if you were sitting here, I'd be touching you more. I'd be like, man, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like I'm a touchy person. I'm a high five. I'm going to give you a dab. You know what I mean? I'm that type of guy. So I need that energy of us here. Like I have a lot of, you probably get them too, but I get a lot of, like I'll interview somebody for the Writers Guild and whoever their PR person is will now start sending me guests from there, which is great.
That's great.
To do them here.
Yeah.
And the problem is half of them I have to turn down.
Oh.
Because I don't want to be on Zoom.
Yeah.
I want to be in their room. I'm like, if they can come to my office, great. If not, you know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I want to interject. I want to do this. I want to have a good time. And I want them to feel my audience who's usually here. Yeah. You know what I mean? And to really be loose about that. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they feel like they're sitting, like everybody loves to be on a panel. Yeah. You know what I mean? It feels like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, so first off, you and I had to work a long time to schedule this out. And then it was like, let's just get together. And
there was a reason.
Right. It's not a critique. It's just when we're all busy doing things, it would be easier to do it via Zoom or StreamYard, what we're using here. But I don't want to do that. Yeah. Not with you. You know, other people, okay, great. Like it's easier. Can I go to Arizona and schedule a bunch of sure, and so I do that. And I have back. I do all that. I want to go get David Holdas. I'm going to drive to New Mexico to get him. And so I'll hold on to those shows and wait because it is so much richer. It's not better. It's just richer. And I for sure do that. And the other thing, and I do this. I went to Ruta Lee's house.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And this that used to be Orson Welles' house. It was, this is an amazing thing.
Scott and I have been there for dinner.
It's so crazy, right?
I love Ruta.
Yeah, everybody loves Ruta. And so I get there, and of course, Ruta's making out with me practically because she just loves everybody touching me. Oh, come on, and she's great. Why would I ever pass up that opportunity?
That's golden.
Yeah, and like right now, I know because of the time we're recording, I'm screwed on traffic, but I don't have to do it every day, and so I just kick it, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, because I love doing this. And if I had more money, I would probably do less shows and do more on site. But my rhythm is this faster rhythm that I don't seem to know how to break.
How many do you drop a week now?
Man, it's 3 to 5 all the time, and usually it's 5. And I try not to, but then I feel guilty.
Is it because this is a great conversation for all you podcasters out there. So last year, I realized there's a reason why I haven't had 500 fucking episodes. 520. I actually kind of started doing it this year and then fucking it up a little bit. But here's what happened. So when Lisa and I first started doing the show, and I wonder, do you relate to this? We were dropping, every week, and then we would go off for a month or two and come back. Everybody, they get to their season finale and they come back. Yeah. It would be like, trying to get the audience back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, fuck that. I'm not taking off anymore.
Right.
So I would go the whole damn year pretty much.
Right.
Which is way too much.
Right.
But I didn't know better.
Yeah.
So I would just bank it, or I would do 3 or 4 episodes in one day and bank them all or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so now I'm at a place where now I'm doing a better, like I probably taken off 3 weeks this year.
Yeah.
Which isn't enough.
Right.
But told you I'm off this weekend.
Yeah.
And then the next weekend I'll do my season finale and I'll be back in June at some point.
Yeah.
So now I'm starting to it just is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The audience will come back because I have great guests and I know what I'm doing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might take a minute to get them back, but
right.
You know.
Yeah, I do feel guilty, but I also forgive myself for that. Yeah. And I'm like, also, by the way, I can use the blow here. I'm tired. You know, I have other projects that need my attention. Right. I've got personal Pete things I've got to, you know, so yeah.
Do you take off? Do you have your season finales? Do you stop, or what do you do?
I just don't publish.
You pretty much
I just stop. Yeah, I just today I'm not. I've got eye surgery next Thursday,
right.
And I may or may not squeeze one in and then release it on that day. But if I don't, I just don't.
Let me ask you this: How much are you? This is a game for y'all. Trust me. How much are you engaging with your audience? So you see my videos I'm starting to put out now. I feel like that's helped a lot, but I could be doing way more of that.
Yeah.
And here's a funny thing.
Yeah.
I noticed my numbers are different when I just say, "Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Hilliard Guess, blah blah blah, blah blah blah," or if I say, "You ever wonder what it's like to blah 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 blah?"
Yeah.
More numbers.
Like
people are like, "Oh, like what did he say?"
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that every fucking time. I want to just be me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting. I'm starting to pick up. You know, maybe I need to do it a little more often here or whatever.
Yeah. Some of that stuff I don't worry about because my goal isn't growth, right? My goal is to build something that's bigger than growth, and it'll either grow or it won't grow, right? We're the tastemakers. Right. And so, like, I'm not going to do this face on YouTube so that everybody looks at the fucking video. I'm not doing that. Right. I'm not going to say like and subscribe, everybody. Right. I mean, sometimes I say it, but I'm not going to. If you don't fucking know by now to like and subscribe, then of course you do, right? And either you will or you won't. You know, so I just don't worry about the things that don't really matter. I can be, and I've tried everything. Right? You know this. I've been around forever. I'm not going to be so desperate to add subscribers that I'm chasing every gimmick, every change of the rules. I don't care. What I get out of this is you and me having this decade-long friendship now. Yeah. We can talk about projects. I can meet Ruta Lee. I can, that is so much more valuable to me than worrying if I picked up 10 subscribers this month. I want people to love the show, but this is what the show is. And if you're down with it, cool. There's so much value. And the people I talk to, I talk to a lot of people. They're like, "Thank you for doing this interview like this. I'm so tired of giving my origin story."
Yeah, I mean, you're basically doing. Sometimes I listen to your show. You're doing Joe Rogan stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like those are the type of people he talks to a lot. Is a lot of the former soldiers and a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah,
and chemists and like you do all that stuff. Like if somebody's important, if it's an interesting topic, you're there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and the only thing that separates that. Not that, he's not good. I think Joe is dope, as far as what he does. His politics are sometimes,
Sure.
But, whatever.
That's life.
It's fine. But trust me, he's interviewed Cat Williams. I'm watching, bitch. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
I want to know what's going on.
Hey, and also he's the master. So
I think he's the best UFC commentator ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Totally. Yeah. And I think he's one of the smartest. Because he's a real fighter. Yeah. It's like, just like you and I, there's a reason why you can talk to these ex-soldiers because, bitch, I was one.
Exactly.
I know exactly what it's like to be on that line. To go into, Afghanistan and all that stuff. You know exactly what it's like. And that's what I appreciate about him, is he does know exactly what it's like to be on that front line, to be in the ring, you know what I mean? To be on the ground doing the jiu-jitsu, like he understands it. Yeah. So he's not just some commentator who just watches. Yeah. You know what I mean? He
understands. Does it?
And there's a difference. I think he's just different. You know what I mean?
The other day, and so I'll watch like Tucker Carlson because he's also a master. And so, because I can't be so vain to think that, I'm better than him. I don't care about his politics, but I'm watching who he grabs. And here's a funny, he had a guy on the other day talking about 9/11 and, like, maybe he's fake or something like that. And he's like, and so-and-so, and he starts to name checking people. And I'm like, I've had him on my show. I've had him on my show. But now that this is here, because Tucker's huge. I mean, he's like the Super Bowl every time he puts a show out. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go get those dudes and I'm going to ask them what they think about being name checked in this 9/11 thing, you know, and they can say whatever they want. There's the thing that I disagree with some people is like, you can't platform. I don't mind. It's a fair opinion. You shouldn't platform people. I look at things and I'm like, oh, that's terrifying. I have to talk about it. Like, you know, if it's black versus white people, whatever it is, like I'm not allowed to feel comfortable. I have to talk about things that are important and try to sort it out. And you know me, like I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not. I have my weaknesses. I have my strengths. Let's just talk like regular people. Because when you can't talk anymore, now you got to fight. And I don't want people fighting. I don't like that stuff. So that's another thing this show has taught me is just to, if I sense something that's dangerous and like, let's risk it, I'm like, then perfect. Let's do that. Because I'm not trying to do anything bad to anybody. I'm glad to evolve. I'm also glad to stand my ground.
But see, that's about knowing who you are.
Yeah.
And standing on who you are. I like something you said, like you're talking about Tucker and I'm talking about Joe. These are controversial people out there. But as a host of a show myself, shouldn't I be studying who the best people are? You know what I mean? Yeah. So you could not like the fact that I'm watching Joe Rogan.
Right.
But I'm watching because I'm trying to see the game.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what is it he does besides the fact that he is this big person.
Right.
How does he? The dude is he's smart though. And he really asks really good questions, in my opinion.
Yeah. No,
and he knows how to get to the core stuff. Like I watch Bill Maher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of people are like Bill Maher. I'm like,
I
don't care about the pilot. I'm watching the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to, like I was just talking to my husband about this, like, you know, he's a realtor in Hollywood here. He knows a lot of the like guys around the Hollywood shows, the $1 million listings and all that. He doesn't like that stuff because he thinks it makes realtors look bad.
Yeah.
So he won't watch it. I'm like, but you're missing the game.
Yeah.
They're still showing you how they made $500 million last year selling homes. Instead of, I don't like the process and how they do it. There's still some game you could be getting. You know what I mean? Totally. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care about the politics. I'm watching how does the best person in the world who does what I do it. Yeah. And how can I take and pull and still enjoy it at the same time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about what they politically think. That's for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's me.
One of my friends through the show is Matt Ballack. He's a comedian, and he said, the 47th most interesting thing about you is your politics, and that's not why I'm here anyhow. And you're like, you're right. Like
that's specific.
I mean, we might vote 100% opposite of each other on a ballot, but it doesn't matter because I'm not. We get to disagree on those things. We don't even need to discuss. We can discuss. Who cares? Right. But I am talking about creating things. You know. And the chances are we probably agree on almost everything, even if we disagree on how to do it. I don't know what the answer is for the Palisade fires. I wish that it was better planned, but also you remember how the winds were crazy. Right. I mean, it was, for people who don't know, we have Santa Ana all the time.
These freaking trees, the leaves were breaking.
Right. It was abnormally strong. For sure. And so what are you going to do? Like
before the fire even started,
we had our orange tree got denuded of almost all the oranges, and they all end up in one corner of our yard.
the rats are like,
they're like, yes, we would like to climb that stupid tree. All right, so I want to wrap this up. The one thing that I know that I have gathered a lot is and Joe Rogan, you see it too, because we've heard so many versions of these stories and seen so many. You must be exponentially better at screenwriting now and what you know and how you talk about it.
Well, I was saying earlier to all you writers, every sentence you write, you get better because now you put down. It's kind of like I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day at lunch. He's this dope writer who wants to write novels, and anytime we talk, he's always like, "Oh, here's some research on whatever," and I'm like, you can write, right? Finish the bloody book.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad it is, but the problem is most people are about making it perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Most people who want to do a podcast won't do it because they're waiting for it to be perfect.
Yes.
Instead of just going, let me just start with the voice thing instead of going to camera.
Right.
Or I have a camera, let me just do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have the speakers, I don't have the mics, I don't have what. Everybody's finding excuses for it. But what I found is good stuff goes through whether it looks good or not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Most of the videos that go viral are shitty looking videos. Right? Because somebody capturing a moment.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And those are the things that go viral. So stop worrying about it being perfect.
Yes.
Get to fade out, get to the end of your novel, right? And then you will realize that you could do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh my God, I finished it.
Yeah.
You know? Let me give you one last thing before I wrap up. You walked in here with so much more confidence having a script now.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, we're working on this thing.
Yeah.
Now you're like, bro, I'm producing a project. Bloom, read this thing. I got some, I'm proud of this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to, well, we're still in, you know what I mean? Just
scrambling.
Right?
Yeah.
Now you're like, chest is up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what getting to the end does.
Yeah.
Now the next thing is, right?
Yep.
Do we do a proof of concept?
Yeah.
How do we get the money?
Right.
You know what I mean? What do we do next? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So once every step is going to just lift that chest up.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
No, I do. All right. Well, thanks for coming, man. I'm going to turn this off, but I love it. I love you. I love being here. I love this whole thing. And it's been a treat for me.
Thanks, Pete.